we thought.
Okay, good morning.
Okay.
And welcome to this year's Nonpoint Source Section 319 Grant Workshop. Oh, I can turn around. We're gonna, I keep forgetting I don't have to do the camera. All right, so this is our Section 319 Grant Workshop for this year. For those of you online, I'm delighted to see so many people who are joining us online. Now, some of you may have seen a similar workshop before. If you have, bear with us. There's a lot of new information in this workshop that has not been presented before. That's very important. So bear with us if you've seen what you've seen, because there's new stuff here too. All right, so our funding is provided to us through Section 319 of the Clean Water Act, and that's provided by US EPA and is distributed by us here at the Department of Environmental Management. All right, so eligible applicants. So those who can apply is a lot of people: municipal, state, and regional governments, quasi-state agencies like our conservation districts fit under that category, public schools and universities, nonprofit environmental and conservation organizations, as long as you have a 501c3 status with the IRS, and any other nonprofit 501c3 organizations that have the capacity to carry out grants. So lake associations, that kind of thing, would be able to also do it. Go ahead, Sean. So what is capacity? When I say you have to have the capacity to do a grant, there's several types of capacity that you need. So financial capacity, do you have the cash reserves to pay for a project and then be reimbursed? Our grants are reimbursable, which means you're going to have to come up with the money up front and then we will reimburse you. We can be invoiced and reimbursed as frequently as on a monthly basis, although that's not typical, but it is possible. If you're doing a green infrastructure project for stormwater, the Rhode Island Infrastructure Bank, which we'll refer to as RIDEM from this point on, has help for those types of grants if you don't have the funding up front. And we'll talk a little bit more about that program later. In terms of organizational capacity, there are a lot of moving parts to clean projects. There's a lot of people to organize schedules, deadlines, change orders. If you don't have that kind of capacity, can you get together with someone who does? If your group is not a municipality, can you work with your local municipality? Or is there a large watershed group that has that kind of capacity that you can work with? Go ahead. For a construction project, have you ever done something like that before? Do you have somebody that will monitor that construction and make sure it's done correctly? Typically, if you're going to do a large construction project, you'll need to have done something like that before and have done it successfully. Unless you're a municipality, we typically think that most of you have done that before. And then administrative capacity, because the federal grants require certain things like the ability to take care of accounting, to keep records for these things. Any grant project can be audited by the EPA for 7 years after the completion of the project. So you have to, we will not keep all those records. We require our grantees to keep those records. So you'll have to keep those records for 7 years. You have to do procurement. There's a requirement for all federal funding and state funding for that matter to have a minority or disability share of 10%, a minimum of 10% to your project. Can you do that and get that going? And then reporting procedures. Do you have the capacity to take care of that? Okay, Sean. Next slide. Thanks. All right, so I talked about the RIDEM stormwater program and the ability to get money through them. So the Rhode Island Infrastructure Bank set up a program called Stormwater Project Accelerator. And what it does is it provides upfront money for capital for green infrastructure stormwater projects that are going to be funded through grants or loans that we give out. So obviously it's only appropriate for green infrastructure stormwater projects because that's what they set it up for. It does not have an interest rate. It does have a 1.5% fee, 1.5% of the cost of the loan, but we will take care of that fee as a grant expense. So essentially, it's no cost to the organization that takes out that loan. So it's pretty good deal for those of you who need that money up front. All right, so what's the timeline of the whole thing? Obviously, today is our last public workshop. We have another one on the 14th. Today isn't today anymore. Today's the 30th. Now we have two types of projects that we're looking at. We have quick implementation projects and then our normal implementation projects. For quick implementation projects, which are projects that can be completed by September 30th of 2024, those will be rolling awards. If you submit a proposal next week, we will rate your proposal against our criteria, and if it rates highly enough, we can approve that within another week to 2 weeks and get started on that. For our regular projects that will take longer, take say somewhere between the 1 to 2, possibly 3-year range, those are going to be reviewed after January 26th. So the last day that this is set up to accept proposals is January 26th at 4 p.m. Now, that's when our apply button on our application goes away. We can't change that right now. If you're halfway through your proposal on July 26th at 4 p.m., it will go away and we can't fix that. So I highly recommend that you start work on your proposal within the system and get it done well before January 26th. And make sure it's submitted well before that 4 p.m. time frame so that you don't run into snags. And we'll go into that a little bit further. So again, there'll be quick implementation. We'll be doing rolling awards so that we can get the award out and you can start working on those quick implementation projects as soon as possible. And then the other ones we anticipate will be awarding roughly next spring, early spring to mid spring. We'll get the awards out. Okay, Sean. All right, eligible watersheds. We've had a little bit of a change in our eligible watersheds this year. Region 1 has decided that we cannot work, Region 1 of EPA, sorry, has said that we cannot work in watersheds that have draft watershed plans. So these are the watersheds where we have final and complete watershed plans. They are listed in our RFP. So when you take a look at the RFP, and we'll tell you where to go to take a look at the RFP, you'll have them all listed. You can take a look at these watershed plans. They're all posted on our website. They're all linked in our RFP. The ones that disappeared from last time are Quinnipiac Island and Situate because those are draft plans. But that doesn't totally necessarily limit you because watershed plans are not the only thing this year. Go ahead, Sean. All right, if you don't have a plan, you may be able to still submit a proposal. If you have a draft plan, if you actually do have a draft plan, you can submit a project with a draft plan, but with plan to finalize the draft plan. Hopefully by December 31st, we may have a little leeway on time frame of that from EPA. We'll have to discuss that. So let us know if you have a draft plan and you want to submit a proposal. We'll discuss that with you. Now, the big thing this year that's very exciting for us is that EPA is allowing us flexibility to work in areas that are environmental justice areas and in disadvantaged communities. That opens up a lot of area that we have not been able to work with in the past, and we're very excited about that. To find out if you have an area in your municipality or in your watershed area that is listed in one of our environmental justice or disadvantaged community areas, we have three ways to find out. DEM has its own environmental justice initiative and an interactive map that is located on our website. Again, when you look at the RFP, it has an interactive link that will take you right there. EPA has an environmental justice tool on their website called EJ Screen. You can actually Google EJ Screen and it will take you there. And the Rhode Island Clean Water State Revolving Fund has published an intended use plan for affordability criteria, and there is a table on page 20. I just looked at it the other day. And it lists 3 tiers of towns of affordability criteria, and there are towns or watershed areas listed in those 3 tables. Or tiers 1 and 2 are the type that we would consider. So you can look at all 3 of those and see if your area is in there, the area you want to work in. If it hits any one of those, because they are slightly different in some ways. There are some areas that are covered in one that may not be covered in the other, just because of how they're determined. Okay, Sean. All right, there's a number of different types of eligible projects, and we're giving you an idea of what, just examples of the types that we're looking at. These are not exclusive. Your project does not have to be this type, but just these are examples. So we do aquatic habitat restoration. So the things we are looking at are things like removing pavement along a stream bank and planting a native species buffer. In some cases, we have roads that go right up to a stream or a river. Maybe you want to take out some of that pavement and put in a buffer. You can improve habitat in existing buffers by adding additional plantings. For example, if you have a cold water fishery stream, you might want to plant shade trees to maintain that cold water. So the water doesn't get too warm for your cold water fish. You might want to remove invasives along in an area and plant native species. You can improve stream connectivity for species in a stream by improving substandard stream crossings. For some culverts get tipped and get perched, so they are maybe 6 inches, even 2 inches in some cases is too high for some animals to get through a culvert. So if it gets perched, you can replace that culvert so it's at grade, so an animal can wander through and get through the stream crossing. If you have a blocked culvert, you can replace that, or a crossing in disrepair, we could also replace that. It's kind of an easy project for municipalities that have substandard culverts, and we're able to do that. Also, we have a problem with aquatic invasive species in the state. You may have heard about hydrilla, but we also have, which is a new species that we have that's pretty bad and kind of scary. But we also have problems with water chestnut, invasive lily, all kinds of things. We could use more boat wash facilities. We have one right now in Chapman Pond in Westerly that we installed as a part of this program. They're not cheap. They're 5 figures, but again, we can put them in. Okay, go ahead, Sean. All right, we can do agricultural BMP projects. Constructions of BMPs in fields that will reduce stormwater and sediment. So you can prevent erosion and downslope sedimentation. We can do erosion and sedimentation controls on a farm. We can restrict animal access to streams by putting in fencing so that animals aren't able to get in and defecate in streams. We can construct any kind of agricultural BMPs that will mitigate any kind of non-point source pollution coming off the farm. Some places need manure management so that it's not just washing off and going to the local stream and causing nutrient pollution problems as well as bacterial problems. Now, as far as agriculture goes, individual farmers are not eligible for funding. We cannot give funding to an individual person. However, a third party like the conservation group can work with that person. We can work through a conservation group so they can partner with them. If there is a particular farm that you want to work with, we can work with the conservation group. Go ahead, Sean. All right, on-site wastewater management, we also do that. So projects that are resulting in the replacement of a failing or substandard system, including a cesspool, enhancements to municipal on-site wastewater treatment systems, or on-site programs that would build capacity for more effective management. For example, we have a lot of towns that have outs programs that require periodic maintenance and periodic inspection and maintenance. If you don't have a program that would track that, we could help you buy the computer program that does that, or even set you up with a computer that's specifically for that. So that's kind of enhancement we could do. Now, one thing to remember, again, we cannot give money to individual homeowners for outs replacements. That kind of thing is handled under our CISLIP program, Community Septic System Loan Program, and that's something that you can work with your town. But these are for municipal types of systems. So, and where it's consistent with a watershed plan, this money can be used to connect homeowners with failing systems to existing sewer lines. That's kind of a big one. So if you have a sewer line in your system and people need to connect and they have a failing system, you can use the money to help pay for that. Go ahead. Cannot use it for new development or to expand your system down the street. Right? Stormwater BMPs. All right, including water quality restoration actions, the implementation of BMPs to mitigate, control, or eliminate stormwater. We can do final design and include that as long as the conceptual designs are done and the site location has been looked at and everything's feasible and the project is going to get built. So it would be a final design and construction. Go ahead, Sean. All right, there are restrictions on stormwater funding because of the phase 2 program. Funds cannot be used to comply with an MS4 permit requirement. So your 6 minimum measures that are required in the MS4 towns, we cannot fund you to comply with those 6 minimum measures. The funds are also limited into how they can be spent in the shaded areas on the map, which are the MS4 communities. There's restrictions, but there are ways to get around those restrictions. So go ahead, Sean, we'll tell you about that. All right, you can actually do a stormwater project in an area covered by the MS4 that you saw on that map. And here's how you can. You can do it if and only if they infiltrate the stormwater before it hits the MS4 conveyance system. Or if they remove stormwater from the MS4 and infiltrate it. So I'll tell you an example of a project we did that did this. In Bristol, there was a school that we did a project where we took all the stormwater on the school property and infiltrated on the school property. It never left the school property. It didn't go into the gutter first. We did it all there on the property, and that is an MS4 area. But because we were able to remove it and it never hit the gutter before we treated it, it was okay. We were able to fund that program. So that's the kind of thing you can do. And for the most part, you can't use it for projects that are part of implementing your TMDL. And the reason for that is because most of those TMDLs are linked in your stormwater management plans for the municipalities. The only one that you could implement would be our statewide bacteria TMDL. So those would be fine. Go ahead. All right, here's a little matrix to show you that in 3 cases, it is okay. There's only one real case where you can't do it, and that's when you have a TMDL in an MS4 area. But if you're in an MS4 and you don't have a TMDL, that's fine. If you have a TMDL and you're not in an MS4 area, you're fine. And if you don't have a TMDL and you're not in an MS4 area, you're fine. So it's not, there are ways around it. If it's confusing, call me. Call me or email me and we can help and we can talk to you about it. Go ahead, Sean. All right, so what are our priorities for projects? We are looking for projects that achieve a targeted goal while providing environmental co-benefits. It's always nice if you have co-benefits in addition to your water quality. We would love projects that improve water quality in drinking water supplies, shellfishing areas, or areas used for public recreation. Projects that improve water quality or aquatic habitat in environmental justice areas or disadvantaged communities. We definitely would like to see some projects for those. and projects that optimize visible use of green infrastructure for stormwater control. We're always happy to see visible use of green infrastructure. All right, how much can you get? Actually, there's no minimum or maximum on our projects. We typically fund projects between, say, $25,000 and $400,000, but you can ask for more or less. I mean, I prefer not to do $50 grants, but you know, reasonably sized grants. And if you have a huge project, ask. You know, we'll tell you if it's too much and we can't do it, or we'll fund what we can. Total amount that we have available is somewhere around 1.2 million. Is that still correct? Roughly. For the quick implementation projects, basically, we have roughly $400,000, possibly a little more. That money needs to get spent by next September. So we are anxious for projects that we're delighted for projects that could be done quickly. Think of those projects that you could just build something quickly that wouldn't take a permit. Municipalities, I really think that in a lot of cases, those culvert replacements would be a nice, quick, easy project. But also, we have about $800,000-ish for the 1 to 3 year normal implementation projects. So we have a fair amount of money to give out. All right, there is match involved. So it has to be directly related to the project. It can be cash or in kind. It does not have to be cash. So it must be, however, non-federal funds. You can't use other federal funds to match our federal funds. You may use municipal employee time for people who work on the project, as long as it's directly, they're working on the project. You can count their time. Go ahead, Sean. Right, the amount of match depends on what you're doing. So our normal match is 40%, and that's 40% of the total project cost, not 40% of the amount of the grant. So, so think about 40% of the total project cost. At the director's discretion, if you're implementing a TMDL, we can reduce it to 25%. And if you're working in an environmental justice area or disadvantaged community, your match is 10%. And again, don't forget, even if you don't have cash up front for that match, that can be in kind. That can be work done by volunteers, and volunteer time has a hefty price tag on it. So don't underestimate that amount that can be done with that. It's about $28 an hour, somewhere around there. All right, so to figure out your match, remember these numbers, write down these numbers. If you're figuring out a 40% match, it is your grant amount, the amount you're asking for, times 0.6667. I know these numbers are going to sound weird to you, but I promise you they work. I've been doing this a long time. The reduced match of 25% is your grant amount times 0.3334. And if you want the environmental justice or GAC match of 10%, that is your grant amount times 0.1111. Now, the easiest way to figure all of that out is if you know what the entire project is going to cost, because then you take your entire project amount, multiply by 40%, because for a normal one, 25%. And get your reduced match. But you have to remember what number you're starting with. Again, if it's confusing, call me and ask me or email me. I will help you work through it. Okay, Sean? All right, land acquisition. We don't always get a lot of requests for this, but just in case, you may not buy land with grant funds. However, you can use it as a source of match if you're buying it for the project. If you're using it, if you don't own the land that you want to work on, but you want to buy it to put your project on it, you can use that as match, the cost of the land. However, you can only have the actual cost of the land that you are using for the project. If you buy 5 acres and your project BMP is only going to take 1 acre, then we're only gonna count the match as that 1 acre that your project is on. So, okay, Sean. All right, how long can it take? Again, it depends. The quick implementation projects, again, has to be finished on or before September 30th of 2024. And after that date, funds will be unavailable to us as well as to you. So they have to be finished on or before that date. They're not, basically, you'll get paid for what you've done so far, but we won't have any more access to that money. Normal implementation projects, priority is given to single year projects. We anticipate that most projects can finish within 2 years. If you have a very large or very complicated project that maybe you need to do in phases, we could do it for 3 years, but you have to justify that to us. Go ahead, Sean. All right, if you don't get it done, any project that falls behind significantly, back up, Sean. Okay. Anything that falls significantly behind could have the grant reduced or rescinded. And if your project, again, if it's not completed by the end of your grant agreement, you will be reimbursed for the funds you spent, but the remainder of the funds are no longer available. Do not assume that you can get a time extension. They are not freely available. Plan ahead. If you have to get it, if you want to ask for a time extension, you can. It will have to go to the director to decide. So it is it's just not one of those things. We used to hand them out like gumdrops. We don't do that anymore because we have restrictions on our money and how fast we spend it from EPA. So we need to get the money out the door. So go ahead, Sean. All right. Or whatever you do, if you put in a proposal, do not start work on that proposal before and on that project before you get an executed grant agreement. Or we tell you that you've got a grant and we work with you and get you an executed grant agreement, which means it's signed by both parties. And I have said to you, yes, you may go. What happens when that happens is those monies can't be reimbursed to you. So if you were to start your project, you'd be starting with money that you will not be reimbursed. We typically don't pay indirect expenses unless nonprofits, those who have already negotiated an indirect rate with us. We, again, do not do advance payments. These are reimbursable grants. And again, automatic time extensions we don't do. Okay, Sean? All right, now how to write a proposal. Things have drastically changed in the last year. There was a law passed this past March, state law, that requires that all federally funded grant announcements and applications go through our new grant management system, which is also called eCivis, E-CIVIS. All of our grant announcements are located at this particular URL. Again, that is located in, let's see, get them that. Can we put that? Can you drop that into the chat? Sean's going to drop that into the chat. The other way is that you can Google Rhode Island State Grant Opportunities. That'll get you right to the page that they're on. And then our grant is called FY22-23 Section 319 RFP. The last time I looked at that page, there were only maybe 4 grant opportunities open on it right now. So ours is pretty easy to find. All right, so again, you have to use the new grant management system. That is going to be used throughout the life cycle of your grant. It will be used for your application, for acceptance of proposals, for our proposal scoring on our part. It'll be used for grant management. It'll be used for reporting, and it will be used for invoicing. So basically everything's being run through the grant management system now to keep better track of all the deliverables, to keep better track of invoicing through the state system. So now this grant management office, it's located in the Division of Accounts and Controls at DOA. It has training materials, a lot of them, and it is really good. So when you Google that, Rhode Island Grant Management Opportunities, you will be on their website. There's a left-hand panel on their website that contains the link to subrecipient training documents. I highly, highly, highly recommend that you click on that, and there are two that you view those training documents, and there's a really excellent video on the training. And I highly recommend that you review that video one, go through that. Now municipalities may already be signed up in this. I don't know if you're not sure, if you're a municipality and you're not sure, I would check with your treasurer, because when your municipality has to sign up for the system, there is financial information required. And it is likely, very likely, that your treasurer had to provide that. So it's most likely that your treasurer will know whether you've been signed up for that or not. Okay, Sean. All right. So again, municipalities, check to see if anyone has already registered your municipality in the grant management system, because that's going to eliminate extra work on your part. Nonprofits, you will have to register your organization if it hasn't been done already. In order to do that, you will need access to financial information, so be sure to have your treasurer handy when you do that. If you have specific questions that are related to the grant management system, first read the frequently asked questions on the grant management website, Grant Management Office's website. It is about 4 to 5 pages long last time I looked at it, and it really does contain most of the questions you will have. If it doesn't help you, however, they have user support. Also, that link is in the left panel of their site, and they have a thing that says contact user help. The thing is, Sean and I don't have access to the applicant side of the grant management system. So we don't really know what you're looking at when you're an applicant and you're applying. We only see it from our side. So you can't really ask us questions, your questions about using the grant management system, because we don't really know what you're looking at, because we don't have the experience of looking at it from an applicant's point of view. It's a whole different look. We only have it from the grantor's side. So these are the people that will help you. They really are terrific, and they understand that everybody's new to the system and everybody's trying it the first time, and they've been very, very helpful from what I've heard from other people who submitted grant applications and are new. So they've been certainly very helpful to us as we go through it. That's why I did say start early on your applications. Get in there now. If you really want to submit a proposal, get in now, get your organization registered, and you can work on your proposal in the system. You can save your proposal as you go, just don't hit submit. And it will save your proposal as you go. And that's what, if it were me submitting a proposal, that's what I would do. I would start working on the proposal in the system, do my revisions in the system, so that you know that pretty much everything you want is in there, so that if the time comes that it's 4 o'clock on January 26th, you can hit that submit, and you've at least got something in there. So again, if there's questions, go to GMS about the system. If there's questions about the grant proposal, you can contact myself or Sean. Go ahead, Sean. All right, so what does make a good proposal? This is about the quality of your proposal and what we're going to look at. So the project should be specific, and it's going to help solve a demonstrated non-point source problem, water quality or aquatic habitat problem. You need to think of your project and have clear roles and describe those roles, who's going to do what for you, and if you have any partners. You need to have the authority to work where you're going to work and to carry out your project. We would like you to write a project narrative, and it needs to be concise, clear, and easy for us to understand. Make sure, what I typically do is have somebody else read it and say, do you get what we're trying to do? If they don't, make it clearer. And then your budget needs to be realistic. You'll be developing a budget. The budget will be reported in the system as well. And your match should be appropriate. appropriate sources, appropriate amounts. These guys are ready, so I'm gonna give them a second. Yeah. Good. Okay, go ahead. All right, so what are the things that we typically run into that makes it not good? All right, you don't follow the format that we've given you. You haven't listed some measurable goals. EPA is looking for us, actually, EPA is looking for us to report measurable goals, reductions in pollutants. So we'll ask you typically to report load reductions of how much nitrogen, phosphorus, and sediment you've reduced by doing your project. So typically we'll have consultants figure that out and model that. And then, if your project isn't eligible, if you submit something that's not either in an eligible watershed or an EJ or DAC area, or if it's in an MS4 area that has restrictions and you have worked around those restrictions. We also will require a site map that's listed on our RFP. We'd like to have site maps to see where you're working. And then, just poorly planned or unrealistic projects will not get approved. This is going to be your project. This isn't ours. This is your project. So think it through and really submit a good project that will help and do good work. Okay, John. All right. So what do we do when your application comes in? The first thing we'll do is that I will probably review it, screen it, and make sure it actually is eligible. And then it will go before our grant selection committee. We'll review it. We'll judge it against our criteria, which you'll find out in a minute. And then we'll recommend projects to EPA and then to the director. And the director makes a final decision on the projects that we'll do. And then once we've got the director's decision, we'll announce them and Brandon will follow that. All right. So these are the kinds of things we are judging a project. These are criteria that we're judging projects on. How bad and how big is the problem that you're trying to mitigate? The bigger and worse it is, and the more effective you are at mitigating it, the better its higher score it's going to get. Is there a public benefit to the resource that you're working? Yeah, there should be. Is it a beneficial impact to the waters of the state or to riparian habitat or aquatic habitat? What is the load reduction that I talked about? Is it going to reduce the amount of phosphorus, sediment, or nitrogen? What's the technical merit? How likely are you to, is it to succeed in doing what you say you're going to do? Is it the right project for the goal that you have? Is it consistent with the plan that you're working with? If this is the watershed plan that you're working with, is it consistent with what's suggested in that watershed plan? If you are with a group or with a town, have you guys done prior projects with us and how well have they gone in the past? A history of great projects is likely to get you another grant. A history of poor projects is not so great, but you might get a grant and you might be just really scrutinized as you go through the grant to make sure it gets done correctly. How ready are you to proceed? Is it something that you're chomping at the bit and ready to go and you've got permits in place for projects that are being constructed? That's likely to look very good for you. How good is your proposal? How clear, how concise, how is it written so that we understand exactly what you're going to do? And how accurate is your financial information? Is your budget reasonable? And does it involve, you're gonna get extra points for environmental justice or DAC. Just get it. Those are the judging criteria that we're working on, and everything will get scored as points on all of those things. Still right. Giving folks online, I'm giving folks here a little bit of time to write. Okay, go ahead, John. All right. So again, the references, our website for the RFP and for all information about it is the Rhode Island Grants Management Office Financial Opportunities website. it's listed there again. And if you can't manage to write down that whole thing, which is admittedly not very intuitive website, you can always Google Rhode Island State Financial Opportunities, and that will get you to their website. I guess that's how I usually get there. Now, phone numbers for questions. My name is Betsy Dake. Sean McCormick is now managing the grant program. So he's been kindly running the computer while I do this slide, while I talk about this. So you can contact either one of us if you have any questions on proposals, on projects, on how to figure out match, on anything related to the proposal itself, we can absolutely help you with. Again, if you have project problems or issues with GMS, you should contact the GMS office. I wish that we could help you, but I think that is it. Now, I see that there appear to be some questions, I think. So I'll just walk back in the camera range. Sorry, I'm sitting on a table over there. Yikes. All right. Can you do, all right, let's see. Sorry, can you go up one more? All right, okay.
First question.
So first question is Alicia, can you do an MS4 area that's specific bacteria for TMDL rep? No, no, unfortunately. Alicia, I don't think you can, because it is likely that that specific bacteria TMDL is listed in the MS4. And that's why we can't do them in do TMDLs in MS4 areas, because we were very proactive when we did our MS4s and we linked our TMDLs to our stormwater management plans. And the unfortunate and unintended consequence of that is it became a requirement of the MS4 to implement the TMDL, which meant that non-point source funds can now no longer be spent on those things because they are now part of a permit obligation. That was very, very unfortunate.
So are you saying WRWC can't apply because the Winnesquatucket has a TMDL for bacteria?
Bacteria, it's the bacteria TMDL for the Winnesquatucket, so they can apply for bacteria.
The federal non-point source funds are not allowed by EPA statute and policy to be used to implement a permit requirement. So it might really depend on the nature of what you're doing. If you go back to what Betsy talked about, with taking water out of the systems, we probably should just talk about it, but in general, we have some challenges with using these funds in MS4 areas for stormwater projects that are perceived to be required by permit, by the MS4 permit.
Yeah, so it's possible. I mean, it's possible, Alicia. Maybe if we could infiltrate on site or remove stormwater from the system and infiltrate.
It might be
a tippy toe.
Specific project concept to give you a firm answer on yes or no.
So
we
give
can follow up and have that.
Yeah, give us a call. Give us a call. We'll talk about it. It's just one of those possible. Can these funds be used for properties in Massachusetts whose watersheds include Rhode Island? No, that you'd have to apply to the Massachusetts non-point source grants for that, unfortunately. Yeah, I mean, Massachusetts does regularly do their own request. They do RFRs, request for whatever R is. For match, what is the acceptable? Oh, volunteer hours, Bruce. The volunteer rate we determined based on a site called, I'm blanking on it right now. I can't remember it right now, but I can give you that. But it's quite high. It's somewhere around $28 an hour, I believe. It goes up each year. But the other thing for match, sorry, I don't need to sit my back to you. The other thing for match is that if you have someone that is working at their professional job, then their match would be at their professional rate. So for example, if your project needs legal work as part of it, and you have an attorney who can do that work for you pro bono, then you can count their time at their, whatever their legal rate is as match. So that's doable. And then for general volunteers, say you're doing a trash cleanup on a riverbank, that rate would be at the general rate, which is somewhere around $28-ish. I can find that out for you. Sorry.
The most updated information is in the RFP.
Oh, there we go.
There's a section
Yep.
discussing match. So if you
Sean
go
put
in,
that in the RFP.
and I believe based on recent inflation, it jumped up to like 31 and
Oh,
change.
see, it's gone up to something, Sean thinks it's up to 30 something. He typed the RFP, so he has that in his head from typing it. So yeah, it's not minimal. It's a reasonably high rate. Where can I review the recording of the Zoom? It will be posted, John, on our website when we get done with this. What is environmental justice? Oh, I would say the best way to answer that question is take a look at our website. Environmental justice, the concept involves the fact that there are certain areas that as a result of policies over the years have not had the same investments in them and have fewer resources and have fewer environmental resources in them. And so as part of EPA's, EPA has a new policy, or actually it's federal policy all over federal government, that we'd like to focus a little bit more on providing some resources to those communities that have historically been ignored in the past. So, but our environmental justice policy is on the DEM website, and I think you can read exactly what DEM's environmental justice policy is. So, okay. Is there a downloadable? Okay, so you're looking, someone else looking at the eService portal and having difficulty finding a downloadable version of the RFP. It is not downloadable from there. Do we have one printed out? I'll tell you what, we should be able to print one out for you and put it on our website in the next few days.
Because it's spread, the
Yeah, it's
RFP is
spread
spread
across.
amongst the tabs.
Yeah,
and
that's the way they've set it up, is they've spread the RFP across the 5 tabs, I believe, on the RFP website. So it's kind of, you have to kind of read it through the tabs. But so you can either copy and paste them out of the tabs, or we could probably do that too and provide like a Word document or something with all that information. Put it on our website. All right. There any, oh, independent sector. Thank you. Thanks, Stephanie. She remembered the name of the place. Yeah, independentsector.org is the is where we find where we get our information on how much volunteer hours are. So there's a general one, and then there's one for Rhode Island in specific. Blank on that new message. What else I got? There you go. Thank you. Alicia just got it. It's 3180 from independent sector. National volunteer or value for volunteer hours is 3180. You should just put it in the chat. Thanks, Alicia. Yes, it's insignificant. It's not insignificant if you're going to do something like a trash cleanup and have 30 people running along. It's pretty good. All right. All right, I don't see any other. Does anybody have any more questions that I can answer? again, if you have any questions, you can call me, you can email me. Our emails are fairly easy. It is, mine is betsy.dake, D-A-K-E, @dem.ri.gov. Put it in the chat for you. And his is sean.mccormick@dem.ri.gov. You're welcome to email either of us with questions that we didn't answer today. And if you have any questions about a particular project, we're happy to talk to you. We are happy to talk to you about particular projects right up until the 26th of January. Then we can't talk to you anymore. Okay. Anybody else have questions here? All good? Well, thank you all for coming, and I hope we see lots of projects for you guys and from people we have not had a chance to get things from before. I really look forward to seeing some proposals. Thanks so much.
So last
Oh, one thing from Sue.
from this group is that the department the Office of Water Resources is also planning to release the RFP for the state-funded Bay and Watershed Restoration Funds, hopefully next week. And so that's a state-funded grant program that in the past we have also run parallel with our 319 federal funds here. There may be opportunities for people to leverage that as part of the match to the projects, larger projects that might be being considered under 319. So that's just a heads up to look for that will be coming.
All righty. Thank you so much for being here. Bye-bye.